Well, you wouldn't tend to think of a hunting dog like that, but kind of what this breed is. So.
Want something? I just wait for. Your box. There's so much pizza. Not cheese. And here's water. Awesome.
People usually arrive a little late.
Sometimes we can wait for 5 minutes just to see.
And you're recording me here, right?
Yes.
Because I will probably be, but I'll try to remember.
Should I move it like here?
You might want to. Largest audience I ever spoke to was 3,000, and they wanted me to stay in one spot, which was like, that's not happening.
Even if he walks, they should be able to still hear.
You can still.
Yeah, as long as they can hear you, it's good.
Anyone been at 3,200?
I think we saw you.
Yeah, some of the slides will be a little different. It's not the same presentation. It's still not even should work with the same presentation. My family only took Chesapeake a couple years ago. He would swim in the creek, but that's different because you get your legs down. Chesapeake jumped in, didn't realize it was deep. He could swim, but he started heading the wrong direction. So Dad jumped in after him and turned him around to head him to shore. It was like, no, I don't want you going over to the other side of the peninsula. Oh, it was great. It was just a little awkward in the sources. You got that.
As long as he was redirected to the right spot.
So most people have their computer. So you can pull your resume up too if you wanted to. Here's that.
My finish.
I can loop back. Okay. So if you want me to go ahead and start, I live like an hour and a half drive after I leave here because I don't live close.
Oh, okay.
No. Eventually do a 2-hour drive. Let's have to decide if we're going to do that or not. if I made the decision. This is me, okay? If you don't know who I am, I direct the Business Communication Center. I'm showing you this because it's a good way of introducing myself, but it also shows you the importance of a resume. Everything on here has an achievement and impact. And that's what I try to focus on in helping people with resumes. If you paid my hourly fee, you would not want to, okay? I guarantee it's huge. But I'm going to share with you the same thing that I do with clients from the standpoint of helping with communication and also resumes, okay? The first one is pretty obvious. The achievement was creating the BCC's website. It's typically ranked #1, and I coach about 2,400 students. This one's probably also extremely obvious. The achievement is training the Duke researchers in IH and SF grants, total over $1 billion. What this does is if I have an achievement and impact on the resume, as you should have, then when I'm in an interview, I can tell a story because I've created the foundation for that story. All interviews is a story about yourself and why they should hire you. The Duke research is a lovely bullet to be able to talk about because I can talk about how much money Duke achieved prior to my training and compare it to what they achieved after my training. And that tells a big story. 17 National Science Foundation grants probably don't mean anything to you, but anyone I would send this to would get it. Because typically the NSF will only give you a grant for 2 years or 3. We received it 18. I don't claim the 18th because I went to the Middle East and had to turn it down. But it also has an achievement and impact. I just don't talk down to the audience in my resume to explain that because they got it. This is my book, in case you want to improve your communication. It's a small pitch. It's on Amazon. Okay. It takes a neuroscience viewpoint of communication. Anyone have public speaking? Oh, good. Congratulations. Okay. So they don't take a science viewpoint of communication. They're more performance focused. They see you as a performer, which is terrible because it creates anxiety. Communication is about myths. This looks like A and B are different, right? But they're not. Because of the silo, you don't see that they're the same color. It shadows it and makes it look like it's different. Remember the dress from a few years ago? I used to use that, but I kind of didn't like using the female shape. I actually put it on Pikachu. Thought that was funny. Got away with it for a while. But I use this now because I think it's more appropriate also in my book. So, you're interested in the words? We're going to look at your resume as words. Okay? This is what your resume should do. The first 4. I don't have to go through these because you can read that as fast as I can talk about the first one. But this is the most important, is what your bullet should do. So they provide details about the achievements and the impacts, and I gave you an example of mine. Prioritize within a position. That might sound strange, that your bullets should have a priority with the most important one being first. Have you been promoted ever? Anyone been promoted? Okay, so a few of you have. Look at your resume if you have it out. I doubt that you have the verb promoted.
I have it.
Fantastic. Because that should be your first bullet, right? The difficulty I see in resumes a lot of times, especially people that have a lot of experience, when they change a position within a company, they will just put the new position. It wasn't that it was a promotion. People glance at resumes, so if they look down and they're only looking at it for 7 seconds, which is what the current research suggests, that looks like you change jobs too often. So that's the reason you do promoted. You promoted from, to, within a time frame, especially if it's a short time frame, makes a really powerful first achievement as far as priority. Give impact to the achievements, and that's measurement. I'll talk about that a little bit. Then you want to use the appropriate number of arguments. Some people will tell you that when you select your bullets, it should be a certain number. And I don't do that because to me, there's no rule for that. There's no research that suggests that's true. What I say is when you look at your positions, make sure that there's not tension between the positions. So if you had a position for 1 year and you have 9 bullets there, and you work somewhere else for 4 years and you have 3 bullets, that's tension. Makes the 1 year position look like you're adding a lot of extra things that you haven't really done yet. Okay? So it's the relationship that matters. Internship is the only exception to that. That's because an internship is a short-term career. So you want to make your readers' eyes react. So when they see the resume, you get that kind of reaction. And what I did is I changed this. If you've been at 3200, I just put this right up front because I figured I'll make it to a little quicker for your group. What you see in the white font is what students had actually written. What you see in the dark font is what they actually did. There's a big difference. I go into an interview and I can talk about managing 120 employees. I am in a better position than if I wrote that light gray at the top. Question?
So if we did get promoted, should we put that next to like the job description or like a bullet point under the job description?
Currently, the research on where to place positions and stuff has kind of shifted to, instead of the company being first and then the position, that they've shifted to a lot of people are looking for position first and then the company, then the bullets.
So I'm basically asking like, so I was an intern over the summer. And then I just recently got promoted to like a part-time paid employee. Should I put that next, like all in the job description? Or should I say I got promoted in a bullet point?
What I would suggest is you take the internship and you put it above the work experience.
Okay.
Because internships working in your field, and that's more impressive than typically other positions, especially a student that's inexperienced. So don't bury it, because if you did something else and now the internship starts floating down, okay, that's not going to be seen by someone. But if you put the label internships, they're going to read it. And the whole focus of designing a resume is to keep them reading. Because once they stop, they've made a decision. And a lot of times, if they stop quickly, not the decision wanted.
I think he's asking where to put promoted, like that.
Promoted. Oh, it's the first bullet. I'm sorry. I
Bullet.
already responded to that. Thank you. Probably the ears aren't what they should be right now, because I took vacation yesterday and the welders finished a staircase that I designed out of plate metal, and they were grinding. They finally got too loud that I went over and put ears on. But I know these ears aren't what they should be right now anyway, typically. But boy, from yesterday, they really got pounded. Staircase looks gorgeous. They undid the metal post that was holding it up. So it's a wraparound metal that goes up like this in a timber frame building. And it only dropped 1/32 of an inch when they took the post out, which was amazing. But, wow, all the grinding to shape and stuff was loud yesterday. Thanks for interpreting. You see the difference? So this is a template. This is an achievement from developing a comprehensive corporate communication strategy that increased the company's growth 25%, and that's an impact. You have that for anything that you've done. That's why you got promoted. So if you put promoted as the first bullet, second bullet should do what? What do you think?
Impact statement.
What?
Impact statement.
No, it's going to tell you why you got promoted.
Okay.
Does that make sense? The second and third bullet, they're still important. You prioritize them. They're going to tell you why you got promoted. As a reader, that's what I'm expecting. If you give me a promotion and then you go to some kind of generic, not important comment, I probably just stopped reading. Here's another example. All I did was flip it, okay? So I put increase the company's growth by 15% by developing a comprehensive corporate communication strategy. So, but the impact is important. If the impact is huge, this is a better example, okay? I mean, this one still works. And it's what typically is used in most situations. This one can be really powerful. A lot of the military resumes that I will do, I will emphasize this because the amount is so huge as far as repairs, the value of the equipment that they're using. That's a better example. You want to avoid this. I still see objectives. If a company asks you for an objective, write one, research it. Find out what they mean by the objective that they want. Don't write something that's so generic that it has no impact whatsoever. And don't put an objective unless it's requested. It just serves as a filter. Finance. What's the most important thing on your resume? I mean, internships are impressive, but what is also really important? It's also important for accounting, even a little more so than finance. GPA, yeah, your GPA. You have a 4.0 GPA. Do you think they're going to interview you in finance? Yeah, I would think so, knowing the quality of the finance program. You have a 4.0 in accounting. Are they going to interview you? Oh, you betcha. I had several people who have been interviewed that had only 4.0 and no work experience. So don't leave off the GPA. I had a student do that once. He had a 3.975 GPA, 3 internships, but you looked at his resume, you could not tell that.
So like, what would you say is the difference like between your department GPA and your overall GPA?
Typically what people will tell you is to put the one that is the higher, okay? Just because that benefits you and they're just looking at grabbing it so that you could do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that because that is a valid GPA. Okay. Now, if you've been to another school prior to ECU and you put their GPA and you put ECU's GPA and ECU's GPA is lower than the other school, what argument does that make? Not doing as well, right? Maybe partying a little too much. So you're making an unintended argument because of the 2 GPAs. So you would probably want to leave the previous school off, okay? These are things that you have to watch out for. Poorly designed resumes. Worst resume I've ever received was a black background with white font. And it was bubbles going up the font because she was a graphic designer and she thought she could turn her resume into a piece of art where her resume needed to be clear, simple, and she needed to drive their attention to the portfolio. The resume was not part of the portfolio. Class list, anybody have that on the resume? You shouldn't have that, okay? Self-proclaimed statements, I guarantee you have, okay? These are examples of self-proclaimed statements. Actually, I can share this with you and not get in trouble. Worst resumes I've received at ECU are from what concentration? What do you think? Not accounting, not finance.
Marketing.
Which one?
Marketing.
Oh yeah, marketing's the worst. I have no idea.
I was thinking
I
marketing.
scratch my head. I've talked with the chairs of the marketing department. I just don't get it. If anything, those should be amazing resumes, but they're not. So, and I mentioned that because the first one was from a marketing student. She actually wrote, I have impeccable communication skills. By using a pronoun in a resume, she does not have impeccable communication skills. I took the I off because I thought it was just too obvious, okay? Performed excellent cashier and bagging duties, provide excellent customer service. You want to make sure you don't have any adjectives on your resume. That's a self-proclaimed statement if you have an adjective. You should have numbers. Check your verbs. This is a common problem, so I didn't have this on, but I thought I should probably put it on. So that you want to make sure that if it's a past position, use past tense verbs. Current position, you can use past tense verbs. I could have discovered something in my research. I will use the word discovered, not discover, because that's not grammatically correct. And if you've looked at ECU's website for services and you have this on your resume, take it off. Experts don't know when they're wrong. And they have several examples that say responsible for. It doesn't tell you anything about an achievement and an impact. The achievement is oversaw 2,500 inmates without any significant injuries. But saying I'm responsible for security of inmates, hell, if I tell 3,200, I could have lost 2,500 last week and you wouldn't know anything, right? Unless you read the news. So make sure that if you have that, take it off. I think labels are important. I don't think skill is a label that you should use. That's an old term. It was great in the 50s, but currently not that great, okay? So if you have multiple languages, such as Russian and Spanish, call it a language, okay? It's not a skill. And it's definitely not the same skill as computers, where most people list both of those, which is kind of silly. If you have software applications but no hardware, call it software applications. Start with the most unique first. Word is always last. Don't put Word first. And you'll see on the bottom, I call it technical expertise, because that label now includes hardware. So for an MIS student that has studied and learned how to use certain hardware, they would include that and call it technical expertise. I still think that those terms can be applicable for finance, okay? And there are terms that would be even more appropriate and stronger for you as far as something other than skills. I've already said this previously. You have to be careful of advice that you get. This is one of the top schools in writing. This is University of Iowa. They have 44 Pulitzer Prize winning authors. These are graduates or professors or staff. But this is what their career services is suggesting. They're taking this lovely menu focus and telling you to pick something from one of these colors and put it together. Do you notice what happens? The internship is buried. And that's what I was warning you about. Just don't bury the internship. So they have class experience above internship. I guarantee you out of 100 readers, 100 had stopped when they saw class experience. Especially with probably a 3.3. Right? They have. Maybe 99. There's going to be quite a few. Now, if internship was further up and class experience dropped off, they see the 3.3 and then their eye catches what? This is the neuroscience. They see internships and they know what that means. Likewise, if you have a lower GPA than what you would hope it would be, but you've had a scholarship, or maybe multiple scholarships, don't bury scholarships at the bottom of your resume, bring it up, put it right after the GPA. Now my eyes see, oh, GPA is not what I'd hoped. Scholarships. You've generated them or triggered them to continue to read, and that's what you need to be doing with the design. Does that make sense? This is another example. Instead of professional experience, the label would be internships, because the person's had multiple internships. Anyone ever done sales? So if you know the numbers of how much product you sold, you would want to put those numbers, because that is the measurement of your success as a salesperson. Not, I'm a great salesperson, okay? But it would be how many customers were repeat customers. It would be how much you sold, and do it on a daily basis, because a lot of times when you're a student, you're just working part-time. So grab a day, use that, and people can extrapolate that to a 5 to 6 day work week to know how much that would be. I marked this in yellow because on this person's resume, these are resumes from 3200. On that person's resume, they did not put applicant tracking system within their software expertise. So you put it under the company and the position and achievement and impact, but you don't put it in the other. It has tension, okay? Is that maybe now you really don't know how to use it. And so this is an example I thought that might clarify a little bit. This is a student that sent me the resume, and everything that you see up above is kind of a self-proclaimed statement. Successfully ran a hog farm operation. Is that person just claiming that? But they ran the hog farm operation, so my guess was that they were supervising, they were managing. It was a leadership role. So I asked the question, and we came up with supervised hog farm operation for, and then the person would put the numbers there. That could be acreage. That could be how many hogs. It's got to be numbers. You notice the second one changed from repaired and replaced equipment valued at over, and then you put a dollar number there. That's stronger than what you see up above. Replaced and repaired and replaced equipment for houses. I suggested they delete the third one. There was no value there. And then monitor daily number of hogs for each house with putting the number of losses there. And then delete the last one because I didn't see additional value there. Plus I looked at the other bullets that the person had, and this one probably should have been 3 bullets. But hopefully these examples help a little. Again, that makes a better argument. This is about a pitch, and I know it's about 4 minutes, but I think it's really good. And I consider the sound to you. I don't typically use videos other than the Procter & Gamble video that I have permission to use. But I think if you're going to pitch yourself, he gives you a really good insight on that.
Byron Clark. I've been a recruiter for 5 years, and today I want to walk you through how to create elevator pitch basics of what you need to know to feel comfortable speaking in front of a hiring manager or any interview. In particular, we're going to focus in on what you're going to respond with when they say, "Tell me about yourself." attention enough that they want to learn more when that elevator ride ends. So that's the basic idea, but we're going to narrow it down to that one specific question of tell me about yourself, or what can you tell me about yourself? So this elevator pitch for job seekers is very important. The first reason is it sets the tone for everything else you say. So if you describe yourself as an expert in one thing, it's going to elevate how future things you say are perceived. Whereas if you describe yourself as a generalist, or you don't really speak to a certain area that you're strong in, later when you go back and try to talk about that area, talk about your accomplishments in that area, it's not going to sound as strong. So you really want to be specific. The most important things to target for the job that you're going to do. Let's go through the 3 basic steps in your elevator pitch. The first step is who are you and what do you do? Just the basics of what you've been doing, what your skills are. The second step is why should they care? So you need to give something specific, something interesting, an accomplishment, something that sets you apart from everybody else who's doing what you're doing. So the first thing you said was, hey everyone, this is Byron Clark. I've been a recruiter for 5 years.
That's right, it repeats it. It'll go back if I touch it. But you notice what the first 2 things do? What is he really focusing on?
Stands out.
What do we talk about prior to his pitch video? It was achievements and impacts, right? Isn't it a second thing, the impacts? And the first thing is really the achievements. And so it's taking those bullets that you have. So if I said to her, tell me about yourself, I'm really saying what? Why should I hire you? It is not tell me about yourself. Don't ever get pulled off onto that. It is mainly, I've given you the freedom to persuade me to why I should hire you. She pulls the top achievements and impacts from her resume and the stories that are linked to that, and she responds with that, okay? I'm trying to link it back to what I did and to what he's doing, so you don't see them as separate, okay? Because they really aren't. That's what makes the bullet so important. So you probably have a couple of things on your resume that you want me to know. If that's I have a 3.9 average while working 40 hours a week and selling this much merchandise, I am sure that you just triggered a second interview versus the short little interview that's happening within the elevator if you take his view of an elevator pitch. You see the relationship, because that's what makes it strong. I don't think the way that this is set up, you have to rehear just a little bit of it.
Today I want to walk you through how to create an elevator pitch for job seekers, basics of what you need to know to feel comfortable speaking in front of a hiring manager or any interviewer. In particular, we're going to focus in on what you're going to respond with when they say, tell me about yourself. The basic idea behind an elevator pitch in a broader sense is you're in an elevator with somebody, you have 30 seconds. What are you going to say to catch their attention?
Since you've heard this part before, what would you tell me?
When that elevator ride ends. So that's the basic idea, but we're going to
Yeah,
narrow it down.
what would you impress me with?
Question. Tell me about yourself. So this elevator pitch for job seekers is very important. The first reason is it sets the tone for everything else you say. So if you describe yourself as an expert in one thing, it's going to elevate how future things you say are perceived. Whereas if you describe yourself as a generalist, you don't really speak to a certain area that you're strong in, later when you go back and try to talk about that area, talk about.
But it's the strongest thing that you have right now. What would you tell me?
You want to be specific.
Why should I hire you?
The job that you're going into.
I
Let's
would
go through
say
3 basic steps in your
because I have
first step
professional experience.
is who are you and what do you do?
An internship, so I have the
What
corporate
you've been doing, what your
experience.
skills are.
So you're gonna tell me
The second
professional
step
experience before you tell me
Is
it's
why should they
internship?
care? So you need to give
Do you
something.
see how it's
specific,
stronger to
something
say,
interesting,
I've had this internship?
something that
So
sets
what did you
apart
achieve with the
from
internship? What was the impact?
everybody else who's doing what you're doing. So first
I
thing
would
you said
say
was I'm an
that
accountant.
I contributed
Doing
to
accounting work for
the creation of
X years. Okay, what makes you different? What's
this,
the
it was a
project? What's
pre-owned
something
ultrasound program. It was a marketing
Third
agency,
step
so I created a
is what do you
program
want?
that sells
Why are you telling them?
ultrasound
So
equipment.
in the
How
case
much
of
do you sell?
it's going to be what are
Well,
you
it was
looking
just
for? Why
the
are
starting
you
phase,
doing
like
what's
from scratch, so it hasn't even been
Fine.
released yet.
So what you could do is you could say, I created this from scratch and it's able
Well, I
to
need
do
a job.
the expectation of sales.
Job, or I want to live right now. So we need to find
Like I
something.
created like the marketing collaterals and stuff for that program.
You need something
Nice.
compelling in terms of why you want this job and what you're targeting.
So you're- we're
So
caught up.
again, the steps are, who are you and what do you do? Why should they care? And what do you want? So if I were job searching, here's an example of what my elevator pitch would be. So they might ask, what can you tell me about yourself? And I would say, okay, my name is Byron. I've been working as a recruiter for the last 5 years. Most recently, for the last year, I worked in the New York City tech startup community, and my group is focused on helping growth stage tech companies hire software engineers as they grew and expanded. One of the interesting things we did, we put the first 5 software engineers onto Spotify's team when they first opened an office in New York City. Now they've really ramped up. That was key to them succeeding here in the US. So that was a big accomplishment. Right now in my job search, I'm looking for a fast growing technology company that I can come in. I'm looking for a company that's really doing a lot of hiring this year that I can help while growing my own career. So I really want to come in and make an impact somewhere, not just maintain the status quo, not just find a place where they're looking for somebody to just keep things running as is. So that would be my example. A couple of things to remember when you do yours. I mentioned this earlier. One, be specific. You want to sound like a specialist. Don't say you're an accountant. Say you're a tax accountant. Don't say you're a recruiter. Say you're a tech recruiter at startups. One other thing to remember at the end, you want to sound ambitious. You want to sound that when you describe what you're looking for and what you want, step 3, sound like you want a challenge. Sound like you want something that's a little bit of a stretch. Don't sound like you're just looking to hop to the next job that's going to have you doing the same thing. Companies would much rather hear the format rather than the latter. So in terms of your challenge, review the steps above. I'm going to put a helpful link below as well with more detail on each of those 3 steps. If you need any more info or just need a little bit of guidance as you piece your own elevator pitch together, then record your own. It's okay if you just use a simple cell phone camera. Don't worry about the video or audio quality. Worry about your message and hitting the 3 points that you want to hit and finishing strong by sounding ambitious. That's really the most important thing. And by doing this, if you practice something and you go into an interview knowing what you're going to say, even if you only hit it like 70% when you're in that interview, let's say you get nervous and you miss a little bit, it's still going to sound twice as good as somebody who is saying it on the fly and doesn't have something prepared. So this is very worthwhile. It's going to help you feel more confident speaking. It's going to
So in a nutshell, that's what he said, just so you have on the recording. Who are you? Why should they care? That's the impact. Okay. Who are you? Those are the achievements that you've been able to do. But what do you want? Okay. That third one may sound odd, but if I'm writing an objective, I better write an objective that answers this. Okay. Or it's not a very effective objective and I shouldn't even write it. Because it has to answer that. That shouldn't be, I want an internship. Because if the company has a position and I really want an internship, but they don't have it as an internship, my resume just got moved over to a location that it shouldn't have been moved to because of the objective I wrote, okay? So it isn't the position, because if you say you want an internship, that's a position. What do you want is how he responded to what he wanted within an engineering company for him to be able to be excited and motivated to work for them. It's the same thing that you want to do with what you want. You guys have any questions? I know there's not a lot of you, but hopefully this has helped. I haven't even checked my time. 32 is not bad. So, what's the most important thing that you learned?